Once upon a time in Texas, there stood a town that only existed for a single day and for one wild spectacle. The year was 1896. With a thirst for excitement, 40,000 folks gathered on a bare patch of land in West Texas, just north of Waco. They arrived to see a powerful accident caused by the head-on collision of two steam engines. Even though the crash at Crush proved to be disastrous, it offered the Old West a whole new genre of entertainment. Situated along the rails of the Missouri, Kansas, and Texas Railroad, sometimes referred to as the Katy Crush, Texas, was established in a narrow valley to the north of Waco. William George Crush, a railroad passenger agent, named the temporary settlement. Crush had the audacious idea to stage a train crash in order to increase ticket sales back in 1895. With the country and Texas in the grip of a hard economic depression, Crush convinced the Katy officials that his outlandish idea would be a surefire way to draw a crowd and stir up business. During the summer of 1896, Texans were inundated with ads for the highly anticipated film, Monster Crash. Newspapers ran daily updates on preparations, and the buzz spread far beyond Texas. The railroad planned to use two old locomotives for the spectacle. Old number 999, painted green, and number 1001, painted red. These doomed engines made their way across the state, drumming up excitement and curiosity everywhere they went. On their tour, the locomotives attracted thousands of Texans, and in early September, a few hundred craftsmen from Katy started preparing the town. They laid down 4 miles of track off the Waco-Dallas line, with a slight downhill slope leading both engines toward their crash. A grandstand went up, along with 3 speaker platforms, a bandstand, a telegraph office, and a circus tent turned into a restaurant. The scene came alive with a lively carnival midway, filled with game booths, drink stands, and medicine shows. Finally, they constructed a unique depot with a 2,100-foot platform and a banner boldly announcing Crush, Texas. Safety was on folks' minds, though most of the engineers reckoned the boilers wouldn't blow when the trains collided. In past head-on wrecks, the engines had a way of pushing up into a V-shape, with the cars behind them folding like an accordion, which made an explosion less likely. They set up a safety perimeter of 150 yards around the crash site, and no one was allowed inside that danger zone. The spot we picked for the collision is like a natural amphitheater, and everyone will have a clear view of the whole show, Crush assured the reporters. They kept the exact location under wraps until the big day, while folks bought $2 round-trip tickets from all over the state just to witness the spectacle. At the crack of dawn on September 15th, they started rolling in, so many that some had to ride on top of the train cars. What was supposed to be a crowd of 20,000 swelled to over 40,000, making the makeshift town of Crush the second largest city in Texas, if only for that one day. Families spread out for picnics, listened to political speeches, and soaked up the carnival atmosphere while waiting for the big smash-up. By 3 o'clock, the trains were rolled out for the crowd to see, drawing cheers all around, with the collision set to happen an hour later. But come 4 o'clock, more folks were still arriving on passenger trains, so George Crush called for a 1-hour delay. At long last, just before 5 o'clock, the 2 locomotives, each hauling 6 cars, inched toward the center for a slow salute, then backed up to their starting points at opposite ends of the 4-mile stretch of track. The stage was set. Crush, riding a white horse, made his way to the center of the line, lifted his white hat high, then after a moment of suspense, brought it down hard as the signal to start. As folks pushed forward for a better view, the train crews bailed out, leaving the massive 35-ton iron beasts thundering down the rails at 50 miles an hour toward certain destruction. To add to the excitement, small charges had been placed along the tracks, sending out warning blasts as the engines roared past. Crush and the Katy rail folks sure didn't reckon just how mighty that collision would be. It's thought the trains slammed together with a force of somewhere between 1 and 2 million pounds, and despite what the engineers expected, both boilers blew sky high. The deafening crash sent metal flying through the air, causing the crowd to scatter in a panic. Debris fragments ranging in size from a stamp to half a wagon wheel were propelled up to 300 yards. Not everyone made it out safe. At least 2 folks lost their lives and several others were injured, some while trying to grab hot souvenirs after the wreck. One of them was Jervis Dean, a photographer out of Waco, who snapped pictures of the event but lost his right eye when a bolt lodged in his skull. Remarkably, he survived to share the story. The train workers and enthusiastic souvenir seekers quickly removed the rubble, and by dusk, the village of Crush was vanished. That same night, Katy rail bosses gave George Crush his walking papers, fearing a heap of backlash and lawsuits from the bigger-than-expected explosion. But the stunt did the trick. Train ticket sales went up, and Crush was back on the job within days, though his showman days were done. The railroad quietly settled any lawsuits with cash and lifetime rail passes. Crush stayed with the company until he hung up his hat in 1940. Other train wrecks drew in mighty big crowds too, with the largest one on record happening up in New York, where 162,000 folks turned out. When it came to putting on a real show, though, nothing quite matched the spectacle of two iron beasts colliding head-on. Even gamblers who were used to betting on horse races were taken aback by the size of the explosions. As one sharp-tongued reporter remarked, "Trains ain't like horses. These iron gladiators will be treated to a light breakfast of 21 tons of coal and 3,500 gallons of water this morning. By afternoon, they'd be little more than twisted metal, perfect for the crowd to snatch up as souvenirs." But over time, the thrill of watching train wrecks faded into the past. Something changed with the turn of the 20th century. The untamed spirit of the West had been tamed to some degree, and folks began seeking new thrills, leaving behind the train wrecks that once captivated them. In the Wild West, high stakes made entertainment truly riveting. Would the next card bring fortune or a busted bankroll? Could the cowboy pin the steer, or would he falter? And as for those train wrecks, would the debris fly into the crowd or stay clear? The untamed spirit of the West was encapsulated in staged spectacles, such as the crash at Crush. The iron beasts crashing head-on were but one of many daring entertainments of the Old West.